Welcome back to our channel where we provide updates and undisclosed narratives on Catherine, Princess of Wales and her royal family. We provide you with the exciting news, Camilla in tears after Princess Anne reveals shocking inheritance betrayal. An insider source claims that Princess Anne made a decisive move at a secret meeting at Balmoral, presenting proof that Camilla had breached several royal protocols and misappropriated royal inheritance. She urged King Charles to revoke all of Camilla's titles and demand the return of all possessions. This situation has created friction among the royal family. Let us see Camilla's response. The Queen's Gambit. The covert scheme to assert a royal heritage, resulting in Camilla's exile from the palace. Within the esteemed halls of Buckingham Palace, where centuries of history accumulate like fine dust on ornate surfaces, an unparalleled crisis has destabilized the core of the House of Windsor. This narrative revolves not on political machinations or external dangers, but rather on a profound personal treachery that contrasts a king's affection with his solemn obligation. This publication has obtained information from high-ranking palace sources, indicating that King Charles III has effectively exiled Queen Camilla from the core of the monarchy. This significant action follows the revelation of a carefully devised plan purportedly orchestrated by the Queen Consort to redistribute and liquidate invaluable assets from the personal collection of the late Queen Elizabeth II. Although publicly presented as a modernization effort, insiders assert that the true objective was to establish a financial empire for her family, the Parker Bowles. The conspiracy was allegedly revealed not by courtiers or government officials, but by the late Queen's most devoted offspring, Anne the Princess Royal. The Princess Royal, equipped with what has been termed irrefutable evidence, instigated a confrontation that compelled King Charles to choose between the lady for whom he had jeopardized the crown and the lasting legacy of his mother. The aftermath has led to Queen Camilla's exclusion from public life and her seclusion at Highgrove House, deprived of her power and authority in a subtle but definitive coup de grace. The subsequent narrative reveals the intricate dynamics of a perilous struggle for power, legacy, and ambition that jeopardized the stability of the contemporary monarchy. The document on the desk. The narrative starts not with an explosion, but with the sound of paper rustling. On a brisk autumn afternoon in 2023, King Charles III occupied his study at Buckingham Palace, a space imbued with the gravity of his recent position. The sun, positioned low in the London sky, projected elongated shadows over the venerable mahogany desk at which he sat, his reading spectacles customarily resting on the tip of his nose. At 75, the king maintained a rigorous regimen, a discipline bequeathed by his mother. The day was a tumult of governmental matters, red boxes brimming with official documentation and briefings about his several charity trusts. The ambiance of silent industriousness was interrupted when his private secretary, a reserved and veteran courtier, arrived with a substantial file sent from Clarence House, where Queen Camilla operated her personal office. These dispatches were customary and often included timetables, patronage updates, or speech drafts. The king, drinking his habitual Earl Grey tea, perused the dossier with an affectation of studied disinterest. The preliminary pages included typical administrative content reports on royal estates, updates on historical properties, and ideas for philanthropic activities. However, when he explored farther, the king's demeanor became rigid. His breath was interrupted. Before him lay not mere logistics, but a collection of intricate suggestions about the personal estate of his deceased mother, Queen Elizabeth II. These were neither the crown jewels, which are maintained in trust for the country, nor the extensive assets of the crown estate. This constituted the Queen's personal collection possessions she possessed individually, infused with a century of memory and dynastic essence. The records included invaluable diamond and pearl necklaces she had worn at official dinners, Fabergé eggs inherited from her forebears, and extensive parcels of property in Scotland, including sections of the Balmoral estate where she had found her utmost serenity. Even very personal belongings were catalogued artworks by royal painters like Sir Joshua Reynolds, exquisite 18th-century china, and furnishings that adorned her private quarters at Windsor Castle. Every page was marked with a frigid corporate exactitude. The proposal named the Legacy Modernization Initiative delineated a systematic redistribution. Certain objects were allocated for long-term loan to institutions such as the V&A and the British Museum to augment public access. Others, classified as non-essential or redundant, were intended for private sale. The articulated justification was refined and compelling to simplify. The monarchy's intricate assets diminish upkeep expenses and create a novel autonomous cash source for the Crown's philanthropic endeavors, especially the environmental initiatives cherished by the king. Superficially, it seemed to be a credible, even progressive policy, seamlessly connected with Charles's vision of a more efficient 21st-century monarchy. Nevertheless, a deep sensation of discomfort enveloped him. It resembled an obliteration, a calculated obscuring of the distinctions between past and present heritage and record. Subsequently, he arrived at the concluding page. A solitary, unequivocal sign-off was inscribed at the bottom, approved for implementation. Camilla, Queen Consort. No provision existed for his signature. No indication that he had been contacted. No documentation of a briefing, an email, or even an informal discussion exists. The floor beneath him seemed to incline a disorienting jolt that sent him breathless. This was not a mere administrative error. It was a remarkable overreach, a clandestine operation conducted from inside the royal confines. Memories inundated his consciousness, acute and agonizing. He saw his mother, her grin subtle, but her gaze clear and authoritative during their chats in later life at Windsor. "Charles," she instructed him, her voice infused with the subtle majesty of her 70-year rule. "You must safeguard what I bequeath. These are not just objects. They embody the essence of the dynasty. It served as an informal final testament, a revered mandate from sovereign to successor." Currently, such symbols were being catalogued for distribution without his awareness or approval. A thought he had never dared to contemplate emerged in his head, cold and incisive as a shard of glass. How far has Camilla progressed? This was the lady he adored, the woman who had endured decades of public disdain to remain at his side. She had been his steadfast support throughout the tumult of his divorce from Diana, the incessant media scrutiny, and the prolonged, patient quest for acceptance. As Queen Consort was she establishing her own court, a concurrent power structure that overshadowed his own. He placed the file down his hand, quivering slightly. The emotions were a tumultuous whirlwind, intense fury at the audacity, a profound feeling of betrayal, and the deep, poignant sorrow of a son whose mother's memory felt desecrated. Charles was not prone to impulsive outbursts of anger. He was a sovereign of forbearance and contemplation. However, this situation was distinct. This was a betrayal by the one he trusted most. Summoning his secretary, his voice was subdued, but imbued with a renewed, unwavering determination. "Schedule a meeting with the Queen Consort at Clarence House this evening. A confidential assembly. We have issues to address with complete clarity." Outside, London continued to thrive unaware. Within the palace, a war had been ignited that would juxtapose love with duty, ambition with heritage, and jeopardize the House of Windsor in its conflagration. A confrontation of determinations. Clarence House, characterized by its refined stucco front and flourishing gardens in central London, has long served as Camilla's refuge. That nightfall, when twilight enveloped the city, King Charles came devoid of his customary retinue. He aimed for the talk to be intimate, shielded from the scrutinizing gaze and eavesdropping of the court. He discovered Camilla in the modest drawing room, engrossed in reading by the glow of the fireplace. She looked upward and presented the recognizable, reassuring grin that had served as his sanctuary for more than 50 years. However, a little glimmer of anxiety appeared in her eyes upon seeing the substantial file in his palm. "Charles, you have returned early," she said, her tone buoyant, striving to maintain the warm home atmosphere of their nights. "I was anticipating the possibility of dining together. Your preferred roast lamb from Highgrove is here." The king remained standing. He positioned himself before her, his demeanor solemn, and placed the paperwork on the gleaming coffee table that separated them. The muted thump reverberated in the quiet room. "Camilla?" He continued, his tone lacking its customary warmth. "We must address this matter. You sanctioned these recommendations about my mother's estate. The jewelry, the estates, the artwork. You accomplished this without uttering a single word to me." Camilla exhaled softly and placed her book down. She stood and approached him, her demeanor transitioning from that of a wife to that of a strategist. Her speech was serene and deliberate, akin to explaining a complicated issue to an obstinate kid. "My dear, you appear to be overwhelmed," she said softly. "Official visits, legislative sessions, your well-being, that chronic back pain you consistently deny. I was only attempting to alleviate your load. These antiques were stored classified as having unclear provenance or just accumulating dust. I deemed it wise to engage them in productive endeavors to generate fresh resources for the causes you support. Advocating for education and safeguarding the environment. It is that which you have always desired." Charles gazed at her, his disappointment solidifying into rage. "That is the legacy of my mother, Camilla, not an inventory for your management. Those gemstones observed historical events. Those territories constituted her refuge. You lack the ability to arbitrarily choose their destiny as if I were only a spectator in my own dominion." A subtle, almost undetectable grin graced Camilla's lips, a facade of practicality concealing a wave of rebellion. "Is your intention to allow them to remain in vaults indefinitely? The monarchy must undergo modernization, Charles. We must not be seen as hoarders anchored in nostalgia, bound by sentimentality. I am acting in the best interest of the institution, and you to prevent us from being seen as an inconsequential, ornate artifact." The term relic impacted Charles with the force of a physical blow. It was the language of rejection, signifying a history to be abandoned rather than revered. In that moment, he saw not a partner, but an operator. The gulf between their viewpoints was suddenly dauntingly immense. He saw his obligation to conserve. She recognized a chance to divest. He left the room without uttering another word. The sole sound was his heavy footfall on the smooth flooring. The dialogue yielded no resolution. It just exacerbated the injury. That night, alone in his opulent solitary bed at Buckingham Palace, the king remained awake. The confidence he had in his wife, developed amid controversy and secrecy, was starting to deteriorate. He saw with ominous certainty that this was only the first. Parker Bowles' strategy. Camilla organized while the king doubted. She had a private rendezvous at Clarence House days later. Her sister, Annabel Elliot, visited, not a courtier. Annabel, a successful interior designer and art dealer, had been her sister's confidant and a hidden receiver of royal instructions to decorate Duchy of Cornwall mansions. Camilla exposed her true intentions in the drawing room when she addressed Charles. Her whispered, hidden voice contrasted with the grandeur of the surroundings. She replied, "The plan I presented to Charles was the official iteration, pouring tea with a strong hand that showed no signs of unease. Modernization and altruism define him. He is emotional and predictable. Annabel, the real plan is ours, for our family." She underlined that the Crown's charitable coffers would not get all auction cash. A network of offshore accounts and phony corporations would funnel large amounts into a new private investment fund. This fund, Camilla remarked, burning with want, will underwrite a new enterprise. Luxurious boutique hotels and resorts. We will buy Wiltshire and Scottish land near Ray Mill. You may oversee interiors using your design expertise. Tom, she continued, referring to her son, food critic Tom Parker Bowles, will curate the culinary experience, transforming them into world-class dining destinations. Laura, her daughter, and a renowned art gallery manager will decorate the buildings with contemporary art to make them cultural hubs. Brilliant, daring plan. It would create a Parker Bowles family financial empire that would secure their wealth and influence for decades independent of the Windsors and public opinion. I have spent a lifetime on the periphery, Camilla replied painedly. Perpetually the other woman, Duchess consort. Never one of them. Elizabeth never really accepted me. This is our heritage, Parker Bowles's legacy. Time to reap my sacrifice. Annabel listened, her fear turning to excitement. Camilla, it is an exceptional concept. However, it is dangerous. Charles suspects. Anne watches everything carefully. If this is revealed, the scandal will be catastrophic. The documentation will be impeccable. Camilla assured her, holding her sister's hand. Money is untraceable. This is our last chance to escape Windsor and secure our future. Discretion necessary. This is for our descendants. After the meeting, secrecy was agreed upon. They were not as secluded as they thought. A long-time Clarence House employee who favored the late Queen over the current monarch had overheard enough. A dependable back route sent the information to the Princess Royal, who was best suited to handle it. The Princess Royal Inquiry. Princess Anne learned it at Gatcombe Park, her Gloucestershire country home. Ice-cold wrath defined her answer. Anne stayed strong while Charles was hurt and uncertain. She considered this a defilement and a protocol breach. A forceful and respected pragmatist, the Princess Royal has always honored her mother. She immediately dispatched a senior member of her private office with military intelligence and forensic accounting capabilities to begin a covert investigation. Anne's staff quickly and carefully deciphered Camilla's scheme. They monitored online interactions, examined Annabel Elliott's design firm finances, and employed royal family and London banking allies. They created a bombshell dossier in weeks. It includes encrypted email between Camilla and her sister, thorough resort venture financial estimates, and preliminary Cayman Islands offshore shell firm creation forms to launder royal auction money. To placate the king, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes investigated areas and worked with architects under the guise of a green investment initiative. The proof was conclusive. Camilla overstepped and planned a multi-million-pound scam to fleece the crown and profit her family. Princess Anne drove to Windsor Castle, where the king lived, with the dossier. She went directly to his private chambers, bypassing etiquette. She added, "Brother, we must converse with keen expectation." She put the file on his desk. Charles, worried by her unannounced arrival, began reading. He observed the emails, bank transactions, and Parker Bowles Resort's architecture. He lost his cheek color and felt extreme fury. The flare of conviction erased his final doubts. His wife had deceived him carefully. She concealed an incredibly avaricious strategy under his love for her and environmental commitment. Betrayal caused a physical pain in his chest. Angered and sad tears entered his eyes. He smashed his fist on the old desk, breaking the quiet. His voice trembled. "She has deceived me. She lied to my mother." He stared at his sister with frightening clarity. "Private chats and light admonitions are over. I am convening a meeting," he remarked, sounding royal. "This evening. At the palace. We William. Her too. Finishing now. The judgment." The emergency meeting was held in Buckingham Palace's lavish 1844 room, usually reserved for visiting heads of state. The air was cold. King Charles sat at the head of a long, polished table under the crystal chandeliers. Princess Anne sat on his right, stern and uncompromising. William, the Prince of Wales, stood to his left, his face a mask of somber duty in anticipation of the monarchy. Queen Camilla arrived last. Her gaze alternated between her husband's sister-in-law and stepson, her mood pale and fractured. She recognized that this was a judgment, not a debate. Charles started with a quiet, rage-filled voice. "We are here due to egregious treachery. I gave you a private opportunity to confess. You chose deception." He pointed to the table paper. "As queen consort, you plotted against this family and the crown. Your scheme to sell my mother's fortune was selfish," Camilla cried profusely. Her resistance gave way to acute late sorrow. "Charles, I implore you," she whispered. "I erred. I was worried. Family's future worries me. My security has never been real. A mistaken sense of protecting us drove my actions. I can stop it. I'll return everything. Kindly consider our hardships. Do not do this." She looked at him, begging for the warmth that had once defined their relationship to rescue her. Anne spoke next, her voice icy. "Return all items to dismantle history for a hotel conglomerate. The damage is done. The worst insult to our mother's memories." William spoke after being silent. He had a quiet yet powerful voice like the air. "Father, we cannot. The legacy of my grandma is unbreakable. Trust is irreversibly broken. The institution needs protection." William's words dictated her fate. His stepmother was second to tradition and duty for the future king. It was Charles's last confirmation. His rage and anguish led to a single decision. He ascended, displaying his regal might. "No, Camilla," he answered, and his decisiveness erased her every hope. "Time has passed. I no longer trust you. My eternal love for you cannot override my duties to my mother homeland and crown. Consequently, I have concluded. All formal duties would end. You will leave Buckingham Palace and other royal palaces, live alone at Highgrove. You'll keep your title for appearances, but your role in this family is over. You are instantly exiled from the kingdom's heart." He avoided her, reluctant to face the woman he had loved so much while her life collapsed. "The meeting has concluded," he told the gathering. "Leave us." Camilla sobbed alone. It was the sound of a bet lost and a life's dream crushed. She was escorted out of the room by royal security and from the life she had worked so hard for. The effects, a remembrance dominion. No official declaration followed weeks later. The palace's strong PR machine began to remove her. Her name was quietly deleted from arrangements. Press releases said the king participated in endorsements by other members of the royal family. The meticulously accurate unofficial narrative described the queen consort as withdrawing from public life due to health issues. Powerful people and worldwide media spread the truth. Camilla, the survivor who had defeated popular feeling, was now in her own gilded prison. She lived alone in Charles' magnificent grounds at Highgrove. Her children and sister were financially vulnerable and had their reputations damaged when the Parker Bowles Resort project collapsed and its funding was discontinued. The exile of his wife deeply saddened King Charles. It also meant emancipation. He became king by putting his mother's legacy above his wife's dreams. He renewed his commitment to tradition and duty. Anne and William formed a firm kingdom core. After enduring hardship, the Windsor dynasty became stronger, more united, and more cognizant of its beliefs. The event served as a stark, enduring warning that personal ambition under monarchy is a fire that will destroy everything in its path. The essence of the dynasty, according to Queen Elizabeth II, was not for sale. A monarch's most sacred and often most terrible duty was to preserve this dominion of memory. In Ottawa, envy begins the story. The highly acclaimed Prince Edward's Reflections of Light, a Canadian journey exhibition, opened in Ottawa a few weeks ago, kicking off the fall. This started an incredible decline. 3 years were spent arranging the project by the Duke, the most humble and pristine member of the senior royal family. Landscape paintings and immersive light works inspired by Canada's natural splendor were on display. Very successful event. The Canadian government called it a significant cultural bridge, and the public praised it. People surrounding Edward applauded. He was liked for his calm assurance and modest gray suit. He was the day's biggest star. The scene amazed Queen Camilla as she approached King Charles. She didn't expect or want it. She was accustomed to being the focus of royal festivities, but she suddenly found herself on the outskirts. The crowd cheered quietly when Catherine and the King entered the National Gallery of Canada, while others called out for Edward. Many royal family friends stated she felt profoundly and conspicuously overshadowed. This feeling of alienation endures. At the exhibition, she observed how much artists, reviewers, and the public admired her brother-in-law. Her unease turned into rage when he got attention. A CBC reporter asked Elizabeth for a conventional response, and her carefully manicured royal attitude crumbled. "Frankly," she responded, suddenly angry and scornful, "I fail to comprehend what is so remarkable about it." The display had emotionless paintings that were impressive. The live remarks shattered the festive mood. Due to their appreciation for their artistic legacy and natural surroundings, the statement was both rude and offensive to the locals. The response was quick. A viral video was created when Canadians complained about the Queen Consort's arrogance and disrespect on social media. Prince Edward welcomed her in the main gallery after some time, mindful of the misunderstanding. He called her comments an affront not to me, but to every artist who contributed and to the Canadian populace. He addressed Canadians especially. Despite pain and defensiveness, Camilla replied with a brutal personal attack. "Edward acts creatively brilliant, in my opinion. Nobody would want to show your artwork without Windsor. Do not be fooled. The public disagreement predicted the fight." Despite worldwide humiliation, Queen Camilla returned to London determined for revenge. The carefully obtained retaliation copy. Inside Clarence's house behind closed doors, a plan was formed. Queen Camilla was forceful instead of apologizing. She decided to hold her own event in Canada when the art business was still popular. Royal family observers call her acts a staggering display of hubris. 10 days following the announcement, the royal delegation opened Fragments of Us, a contemporary artwork in Vancouver. The official announcement says it will address fractured personal identity in a globalized world, unlike Edward's nature emphasis. Observers could see the goal a frontal challenge to put the Duke in the limelight on his own land. People were curious and skeptical as the event began. However, travelers and bystanders soon saw that Edward's Ottawa plan matched this one. The organization lighting mirrors and three-act narrative structure of the visitors' tour were similar. A popular web article by Canadian art critic Lydia Go was an uncanny resemblance. She methodically listed the links, including the gallery's schematic design and mirrored surfaces, as symbols. He remarked, "If this does not constitute plagiarism, then the art world must swiftly redefine creativity." A torrent resulted from her analysis. The Globe and Mail's front-page story, Camilla's creativity coincidence or copy. Many social media users posted side-by-side photos. A pattern was emerging. The Queen Consort had been affected by her brother-in-law and copied his conduct. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts and goodbye for now.